fintech is ultimately a battle of trust. You're trying to win the trust of your customer, and you're trying to develop that trust throughout the years and as you develop that customer life.
How have you built trust over a period of time? I get the crowdfunding side. I don't know if that leans towards the overall trust building side, but because trust isn't easy, right? Like, how do you go about building trust then?
Very smart one said trust equals consistency times time, which I thought was quite an interesting way of looking at it. No one wants to be educated. The word education is arguably patronising and takes people back to their school days, which no one really wants to think about. People want to absorb amazing content, and that's the challenge all fintech marketers have, right? The decisions people make in their lives are so much more fluid. Why have a financial advice model that is built upon like initial fact find, and then this is your plan? It'd be so much more sensible to build a financial advice offering which is so much more iterative, because that's how people think. That's how humans process it.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Couchonomics with Arjun. Beaming in from London, and this is not the first guest from London this season, which is great. We're going more international, is Alex Latham. Alex is a co-founder and chief marketing officer, and I think that's important because I think it's the first time I actually have a marketing officer, which means we're going to dwell a bit into marketing, for Chip. For those of you who don't know Chip, Chip was recently recognized by Financial Times as one of the fastest growing fintech in Europe. With that lengthy introduction, Alex, welcome virtually to the couch.
Thank you very much for having me. It's fantastic to be here. Really excited.
Excellent, Alex. And we should give a shout out to a common friend, Amir Nurila, who was kind enough to sort of introduce both of us, because when I reached out to Amir and I said, hey, I want some exciting businesses and founders to come on the show from the UK, and he was like, speak to Alex, and you were one of the first sort of few names he did. So it took us a while, but you're on the show. Alex, let's kind of frame the scene, because, the majority of, I guess, my audience is Middle East and the Indian subcontinent, but, we have a growing number of people in the UK. But it'll be very interesting. I think there are a couple of questions. I want to first start with sort of a state of nation view from your perspective, specifically for UK FinTech, right? I'm a Brit myself, haven't been I haven't lived in London for nearly 20 years now. But in your words, where is FinTech in the UK? What's kind of shaping the market in the sort of the post-COVID era, if I may use that term?
Yeah, totally. So I think, we founded the business about 10 years ago. And I think 2016 was kind of a really pivotal moment for UK FinTech, because all these businesses were suddenly sprouting away. And it was when Monzo launched, Revolut launched, we launched. And there was that kind of real sense of optimism around UK FinTech. And it was frankly the first time that people kind of married together British amazing financial services and infrastructure alongside amazing user experiences and product. And that was really a catalyst, certainly for us, definitely for me, but definitely the UK kind of being that real champion of fintech. And I think obviously if you look at the success that a lot of the businesses, Monzo, Revolut, etc., Starling have had, I think it's been testament to that amazing kind of marrying of worlds of incredible British financial services infrastructure, and also the visions and kind of and hard work of the product teams and user experience teams around that. I think fast forwarding to today, I think Britain is still the absolute kind of, I would say, biased as I might be, very much the global kind of bedrock and champion of fintech, consumer fintech, certainly. And I think it is for sure been a rocky road. And I think that rocky road has been global, right? The macroeconomic environment has been rocky over the kind of the past 9 years. But these British fintechs have done an unbelievable job at navigating that murky environment. And I think if we look at where we are today, some of the success stories in British fintech of obviously Revolut is, I think it's Europe's highest valued private business or something. And Starling is obviously hugely successful. Monzo is hugely successful as well. I like to think that Chip, we're doing really well as well. I think, as you mentioned, I think the Financial Times listed us as the 12th fastest growing business in Europe this year. So I think I'm still super optimistic about British fintech. I think there are challenges and hurdles to overcome. And I think what will be really interesting will be the next chapter of British FinTech, specifically around AI. I think no one's really sure about how AI is going to play a part in consumer fintech in the UK. And I think there hasn't really been much traction in consumer AI fintech marrying together. But I think that will be really interesting. And I think the FCA and the regulator are doing a lot of work at trying to have those conversations around how AI will fit into British fintech going forwards. But yeah, I think that's the next big challenge for British fintech is we kind of like 2016, 2017, all these fintechs started sprouting out, all these startups are super exciting. Then suddenly over the pandemic, they kept growing really quickly. Everyone valued user experiences. Everyone valued a new way of doing banking during the pandemic. And then as we are today, all those businesses are super integrated into British culture now. Now I think the next step of growth is going to be really interesting and really exciting is really, from my perspective, how can AI be integrated into that kind of financial fabric? And I think that's the big question I'm asking myself anyway.
So if I may ask a question, and I think I'll wear a bit of an international sort of hat on it. So, British FinTech for Britain works. The point is proven. I had a very good conversation with Raman Bhatia from Starling at one of the recent shows where we had a fireside chat. I think some of the British fintechs are now sort of flirting with the idea of going international. So obviously Revolut's done a great job. I think it's in 60 different countries, but you're starting to see more and more of the British fintechs sort of look internationally, right? Do you think it has the ingredients?
I think clearly Revolut has absolutely nailed it. So I think that it can be done for sure.
But that's one, right?
I think the challenge is the go-to-market strategy of going international. And I think that Revolut did insanely well because they had a clear go-to-market strategy with any new territory they launched in, be it kind of Eastern Europe, be it the rest of the world. They knew this is their go-to-market playbook. They absolutely nailed it. I think there are examples where startups or fintechs try and go international that don't work because they don't have a clear enough go-to-market strategy and they don't have a clear enough differentiation. I think interesting example is when N26, the German challenger bank, tried to come to the UK. I think they spent 100 million and they pulled back and they actually exited the UK because they didn't have that clear go-to-market strategy. And I think Revolut have been so successful at that you need to understand the pain points of the territories you're trying to launch in, and you need to understand how you're going to get in front of those customers in a positive way. And I think if you can do that, you can absolutely nail it. But I think it's going to be hard. I think Monzo is a really interesting example, right? Monzo's growth in the UK has come from largely word of mouth, right? And they've done an unbelievable job at unlocking huge growth through word of mouth, having a really provocative card, really great user experience. It's spread like wildfire. You can't rely on word of mouth really when you go to different territories because no one knows who the hell you are. And frankly, you're kind of a foreign entity that no one really trusts. So I think it's definitely a huge opportunity, and I would expect in the next 5 years, British fintech to have a huge impact globally. I think there is a big question of how British fintechs can integrate into other territories and not rely on their British go-to-market strategy, because Britain is quite unique in how we kind of adopt financial services. So I think it will be interesting, but a big question mark on the success.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Chip, because as I said, right, so we had a brief discussion. I've obviously read up on you guys prior to the show. One has to, right? We use the term digital wealth manager. Would you want to sort of deconstruct Chip for us? Over the 9 years, what is it that sort of makes you who you are? And if I throw in a couple of more questions while you're at it, because it then gives you a straight line to talk about it, how do you compare with the other sort of cash marketplaces that might exist, right, which are offering sort of saving offerings, and obviously some of the digital banks, right? Because I'm assuming there is a crossover between what you're offering and some of the digital banks. That's my assumption. So tell us a little bit about Chip.
Totally. So we're quite unique. So as I said, we've been going for about 9 years. We are Britain's most crowdfunded business, which is quite strange. So we raised about £50 million to date, and that's from 28,000 shareholders. We haven't had a single institution back us to date. And that is largely by choice because we haven't needed to. So we've raised a huge amount of money from, frankly, normal people in the street, be it the postman, the engineer, the doctor, stuff like that. And our average shareholder has not invested particularly much money. Off the back of that, we have been in this constant kind of cycle of iteration with our shareholder with our shareholder base to really build out what we are today. And what we are today is effectively, as you said, digital wealth manager that offers access to the best savings accounts in the market, the best ETFs, investment funds in the market at the lowest cost we possibly can, and then all the tools you could possibly need to help you build long-term wealth. So be it AI-powered deposits that kind of reflect your weekly spending behavior, so you can save more, save less when the AI sees it can spot the opportunity. It gives you savings plans to hit your goals. You can program into your life goals in the app. And we're also launching in the next couple of months AI-powered financial planning as well, which is really exciting. Now, for us, we're very much the kind of the home of your money for the long term, right? So if you think the slightly cliche marketing answer I give is that if Monzo is the home of your money today, Chip is the home of your money tomorrow. And yeah, apologies for the slightly wanky marketing nature coming out with me there. But basically, we are very much focused on that long term. And how you do that and how we have done that is we've started off with cash savings. I always say that fintech is ultimately a battle of trust, right? You're trying to win the trust of your customer and you're trying to develop that trust throughout the years and as you develop that customer life. So we get a customer in with cash savings, we develop that trust, we have the government FSCS protection on the deposits when the customer signs up, we then nurture that relationship and build that trust over time. But frankly, the growth from us has very much, as you said, come from huge growth in our cash savings offering. It was during the pandemic that we were really building out an amazing savings offering. And we were building out like completely frictionless experience around withdrawals taking about 4 seconds to be back into your current account, deposits taking also about 4 seconds to deposit that money, and that amazing experience, amazing rate. But at the time, I think the Bank of England base rate was like 0.1%. So everyone thought we were completely crazy because we were the ones who were building this amazing savings accounts. And all these other fintechs were doing like stock trading and Robinhood and free trade, etc., doing all the stock trading stuff, which was super popular during the pandemic. And everyone looked at us doing savings accounts when the Bank of England base rate was 0.1%, thought we were complete idiots. And then obviously the interest rate environment changed. Interest rates started growing very quickly, and then suddenly savings accounts were hot again. Everyone wanted to use savings accounts, and all the people who thought we were complete idiots for building savings accounts suddenly realised we weren't as stupid as we looked, and we very, very, very quickly off the back of it, and yeah, we still are growing very quickly. I think we now have over 400,000 customers using Chip every single month. We manage over £6 billion in assets, and we're still growing as quickly as we've ever grown. So for us, the gateway is help customers with their cash savings. That's kind of the first entry point to wealth, right? That's the first step to building a wealth is have a great pot of cash savings you know what to do with and you can do something good with. And then it's about building out the kind of wealth building products thereafter, bit stocks and shares, ISA, investing, long-term ETFs, etc. And that's where that kind of trust building comes in, and that's what we're really focusing on at the moment. So that's kind of Chip. But yeah, it's been an absolutely crazy 3 years for us, growing ridiculously quickly, and we have no ambition of slowing down.
So Alex, let me ask a question, and so. I hear when you say Monzo or whatever, rather than sort of go after Monzo, any of these digital banks is the bank for today, and Chip is your bank for the future or your platform for the future, right? What stops Monzo and the others to pivot to what you are offering? Because at the end of the day, they're building trust as a bank, right? There are other wealth players in the market, whether they're robo-advisors, whether they're the trading apps. And I totally agree with you. I don't see the trading apps as wealth preservers by any chance. They're gambling sort of platforms for me. Two parts to this question. One is, why haven't the banks already responded, or at least the digital banks already responded and said, hey, Chip's kind of taking away this really lucrative share of the business, and they've grown to 400,000 customers, which is a lot of customers in Britain, right? Because let's be honest, this is not Brazil, it's not India or China in terms of the number of people, right? The second part of the question is, what is it that's attracting? I get the UI UX experience, the immediacy and all of that stuff, but what's attracted 400,000 people to you? Because I'm assuming you're not the only person offering this.
No,
right?
totally. So I think to answer your first question, like, what's to stop the challenger banks doing this? They are trying to do it, right? I think they very much, like Monzo has launched its ETF platform. They obviously have savings pots. They are very much trying to do it. Revolut trying to do it as well. I think there's an element to which British people certainly like a bit of compartmentalization in terms of how they manage their money, right? So it's obviously a very common thing, certainly in the UK, I imagine, for the rest of the world.
Yeah, other parts of the world
where
too.
you have your bank. Your bank is where you do your day-to-day spending, your day-to-day financial management. But then you also want to have your platform where you manage your longer-term wealth. And that's very much played to our advantage for sure, which is customers frankly like having their salary going to their Monzo account. That's where they have their joint account, etc. But then they also have Chip, which is where they know they can get better rates and take their finance and their long-term finance more seriously. So I think that is certainly one element of it. I think also we're obviously a lot smaller business than Monzo and Revolut, which means that we operate a much slimmer cost base, right? They are obviously banks. They need huge operating costs to be able to do loan books and huge, obviously, regulatory burden on top of them. We have the luxury of keeping our cost base super slim, and therefore we can offer really competitive rates. So our rates are drastically more competitive than Monzo in terms of the savings rates we offer our customers, but also the costs the fees we charge customers on our stocks and shares ISA is like almost 50% less than Monzo. I think Monzo is something like they charge 0.6%, we charge 0.25%. We can afford to offer these really, really, really competitive rates because we keep our cost base much, much slimmer, and we don't have the same regulatory burden.
Makes sense.
So I think those, frankly, are my two answers in terms of they are trying to do it for sure. But I think British people like having stuff a bit separate. And I think that's kind of very natural feeling to have your money for your day-to-day spending over here and then your money for everything else over here. And that's really helped us. But then I also think like the way we have kind of set up our business is purposefully to be able to offer the best possible rates we can. We know that people ultimately, that's what they care about. Yes, they care about user experience. Yes, they care about amazing UI. They care about trust. They also care about getting the best possible return they can. And we totally accept that. And we have set up our business to be able to offer that. I think that's really important for us and our customers as well.
And the second part, so with being big, you could argue there's a little element of trust which comes with being big, right? You're playing the slightly more smaller, nimbler sort of role. So how have you built trust over a period of time? I get the crowdfunding side. I don't know if that leans towards the overall trust building side, but I'll let you answer the question because trust isn't easy, right? Like, how do you go about building trust?
Totally. And this is the area I find fascinating and I love talking about, because I think someone very smart once said trust equals consistency times time, which I thought was quite an interesting way of looking at it. But I think there's a common misconception that the bigger you are, the more trusted you are. I think the best example of that is probably, I'm not sure how familiar your listeners are with moneysavingexpert.com, right? Moneysavingexpert.com it's effectively a money blog in the UK that is now a price comparison website, but it is absolutely the most trusted source of money information, best buy tables in the UK, and it's championed by Martin Lewis, who's a huge name in the UK. I think some survey said that he's the most trusted man in the UK. But if you go on their website absolutely looks crap compared to Money Supermarket and Compare the Market and Money.co.uk and all these huge price comparison websites. This little website, moneysavingexpert.com, has hugely more trust, way more authenticity than all of those other sites put together. And they would kill for for that level of trust and attention they have. So I think the answer is authenticity. It's being truly authentic and personal to your customers. I think that's what gains trust. Now, obviously, there is the type of trust that is generated through kind of doing business for hundreds of years and being a household name, and being all over the place and just being commonly in people's mind. There's also the trust that gets created by being completely authentic, completely personal, completely human, completely vulnerable, and actually just being yourself. And I think that's the trust that we're trying to tap into is, you know what, we are not going to anytime soon be as big as some of the big players in finance, right? We're not going to be as big as Hargreaves Lansdown or HSBC, as much as I would like to be one day. But by hell or high water, we can be more authentic, we can be more human. And I think our customers really value that. They really value the frank communication from us. They really value the people behind the brands. They really value, frankly, conversations like this, where they can meet me as much as I wouldn't want to meet me. But they really value those kind of conversations, that insight into what's going on in the business and what's happening with their money. And that is what we're all about, is having a really authentic human experience behind amazing software, amazing technology, and amazing pricing. And that's what we're trying to achieve. And I think it's really
no, it's very interesting. So and it's strange because I was in Doha, which is in Qatar, last night. I was with a bunch of bankers and a couple of fintechs, and you know we were having this conversation regarding trust, and it was the context was trust and AI. But here's something. Here's a question. I don't have the answer, but take it as a challenge, right? I see trust in this sort of money game as a spectrum, right? So there's the first level of trust, which is I trust Alex's views, but I still reserve the right to act on it or not in terms of what I do with my money. So, you know, which is a point of view. It's easy to do that, right? Because you really not put your money where your mouth is. You've just heard Alex as a trust. Then I think there's the next iteration of trust, which is I'm ready to put a little bit of my savings, right, on Chip, right, which is a nice company. It's 9 years old. It has 20,000 shareholders or 28,000 shareholders, right? Very good at experience, extremely authentic, is able to personalize. Yeah. But then as you want to scale, you obviously you're obviously looking to scale in terms of number of customers, but you also want to scale in terms of AUM per customer, right? And there's a point at somewhere down the equation where you turn and say, am I really ready to put 50% of my savings, of my lifetime savings on your platform? Now, I guess there's two-level question to it. One is more of an esoteric conversation, is basically, you know, two people, as they say, you know, shooting whatever you want to shoot, have a conversation. But from your perspective, are you really then looking to get more and more money out of your customers? Or you're saying, you know something, they're going to have more than one wealth manager that they're going to use. We'll use the entry-level wealth bit.
To answer the last bit, no. We absolutely want as much of the customer's wealth that they are willing to build with Chip. And our vision is very much in 5 years' time to be the absolute go-to platform for our customers to build long-term wealth with Chip, regardless of whether that is your pension or your inheritance or whatever that looks like. We want to be the platform to cater for it. I think that trust, that level of trust you're talking about, develops over time, and you can't. There are no shortcuts to that, right?
What are the non-negotiables?
I think the non-negotiables are consistency. I think you've got to be consistent with customers. You've got to be honest with customers, and you've got to have a long-term view on the conversation you're having with customers. And I think that's important. I think that, of course, like running any business, there's always that trade-off, right? Of kind of how do you want to operate in the short term for business to be good and for you me as a marketer to hit my numbers, etc. But then also have that long-term view on, actually, this might not be so good for my short-term numbers, but you know what? It's a frank conversation we need to have with the users about whatever's happening in the world right now. But we think it's going to develop that long-term trust, and I think that's my view on it, really, right? Which is trust. Yeah, the end game is for Chip to really be the trusted platform for long-term wealth. In the same way that like Hargreaves Lansdown is in the UK right now, right? Hargreaves Lansdown have built a brand over whatever hundreds of years that is their known quantity. People trust it because it's a big name brand. It manages billions and trillions, whatever it manages, right? But I think people are looking for a new way to do things, and I think people are looking for a platform that is really technologically amazing, which is obviously an area that we are really, really focused on, but has human authenticity, personalization at the center. And that is what we're betting the farm on, is that by having humans who are behind chip at scale, then you can build real trust with your customers and having those very human, frank conversations. So as an example, we invest very heavily in our CRM engine, right? So we have hundreds of automations that go out every single day to different customers, talking to them about different things. Now, every single email, although it's quite clear, I think, to the customer that it is automation, is from a human being, right? It has the person's face at the top of it, it has their job role at the top of it. It even has the link to their LinkedIn account at the top of it, so you can see who that person is and they are a real human being. Now, this is one thing that we do. It might be a small thing, but it's really popular user base because it, again, encourages the fact that when you get an email from Chip asking you to connect to your bank again because the connection's dropped, it's come from Lizzie in our CS team. Lizzie is sitting in the room behind me, and that's a very human conversation. Now, I think by doing that consistently, and that's hard, consistently being human with customers is how you build long-term trust.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's double click on consumer behavior. You mentioned something very interesting when we started speaking. Said, the savings rate was at sort of 0.5%. You're building a savings product. People are going, what are these guys up to, right? You've obviously 400,000 people, so you see some incredible behavior trends, right? And sort of behavior patterns. How have these savers' behavior patterns sort of evolved over the last few years? Because we've had some big incidents, big events in our lives too. We've had COVID. You've had, prior to that, there was Brexit. Geopolitically, the world gets more and more interesting. We're living in a world where, we're on social media, half bloody messaging. We don't even know if it's truth or not. It all kind of impacts the way we behave. As a matter of fact, I myself am now behaving very differently to what I was 2 years ago with my savings play. What sort of, are there any sort of macro trends that you're seeing in terms of behaviors which have moved and evolved?
I think what we're seeing is people are taking, maybe this is just us and the nature of our business, but it does appear that people are taking an increasingly more long-term view of their finances than they were potentially a couple of years ago, which is really interesting, right? And I think that's because during the pandemic, people obviously not everybody, but a lot of people suddenly started saving, having quite material amounts of savings because their expenditure fell drastically. They suddenly had this pot of cash to sit on. Also, at the same time, stocks are flying through the roof. People were, oh my God, my stock's up 100%. It's incredible. And then everyone realized it then came down again in the coming years, or that kind of stock picking investments. Now we're also, as you point out, in a world where kind of like the tariffs and the global instability, that things going up and down like that all the time. But I think people have kind of got used to that kind of that kind of uncertainty. And I think people are now taking a view that actually betting on what's going to do well in the next 6 months or a year is not the right way to view your finances. People are viewing, okay, I'm going to take a slightly risk-off approach, obviously because of the instability in the world, but having a lot longer term viewpoint on what they want to do with their money. And I think that makes sense, right? I think if you look at kind of what has happened in the last 4 years, people suddenly saved a lot in the pandemic. People suddenly earned a lot of returns on the stocks they bought, whatever they bought, what was popular at the time, GameStop, etc. And suddenly everything came back to reality with a bit of a crash. And now we're in this environment of instability. I think people are suddenly being like, you know what? As a society, we've been through this kind of mad yo-yo of 4 or 5 years. Now it's time actually to focus a bit more bit more on the long term. I also think that now interest rates are starting to stabilize a little bit more. I think it has kind of created a bit more calm in the interest rate environment, where people kind of are earning a return at their bank for the first time since 2008, and that return is relatively unvolatile now. So now everyone can actually have that kind of that stable base of, you know what, I've got my savings with Chip, they're earning a good interest rate. I can now look at other long-term options to manage their finances with. So it's
So interesting you say that, right? So if I take the 100,000 feet view globally, and I'm not going to talk about the UK, there are sort of, how may I say, simple saving products which are sort of interest rate driven, right? But then we've started seeing a number of alternatives come in, right? So you've talked about ETFs, but now we have crypto-based ETFs which have come in. There are direct investments in the likes of Bitcoin, and what I find quite interesting is that Bitcoin is incredibly volatile, but people are taking a long-term view. So in a lot of ways, they're like, we don't care about that volatility. It's non-consequential. We're going to hodl, or whatever the word is, right, in terms of Bitcoin. And then I think, there's more and more alternative assets which are sort of coming in because they're becoming more accessible to retail investors through either tokenization or SPVs and so on and so forth. Is that a behavior you are seeing more and more of? And is that sort of putting some pressure on you as Chip to say, we need to kind of diversify our offering? Or is there a particular type of customer who comes to Chip, which wants a particular type of offering, which tends to be very low, very long-term and incredibly stable and safe?
Yeah, like right now we don't offer crypto. We offer a crypto ETF, which is effectively it's an equities ETF with companies that have exposure to blockchain or crypto. I think Coinbase is like one of the biggest assets in that ETF. I think my view is that we're already, as a society, especially in Britain, I think Britain has the lowest percentage of people who classify themselves as investors of any society in the developed world, or something crazy like that. And we are fundamentally a nation of savers, right? Absolutely a nation of cash savers. We take very low risk view on finances. I think there is a societal challenge at the moment in Britain of getting people to engage more with investing, but fundamentally investing in the right way. Now, I think crypto, as exciting as it may be, and personally, I find it fascinating. I don't think we should be centering that debate around cryptocurrencies. I think, or alternatives, or however you want to label them. I think we should be centering that conversation as a society around how can we use investing in the best way possible, right? And now the investing in the best way possible is obviously take a long-term view, have a good, clear focus on what your goals are with that investing, and try and be as diversified as possible. That is what I want to encourage. Now, the challenge, obviously, is that is really, really boring. And no one goes to a dinner party and talks about their well-diversified ETF, but they do go to a dinner party and talk about that friend of a friend who earned £400,000 investing in a meme coin. Now, that's a challenge, and that's human nature, ultimately. But I think the challenge we've got, and the challenge the British government are obviously trying to address at the moment, is how can we get people investing more sustainably, more scalably? And I don't think anyone has the answer to that right now. And I think everyone's struggling to do that. But
And how much of that is, again, I say, I haven't been in Britain for a long time, but, I totally understand where you're coming from, right? Incredible savers, not great investors, if I sort of paraphrase what you just said. How much of that is about education, right? How much of it is about informing them? How much of it is, you answer the personalization side, but there's a flip side of personalization, which is actually someone knowing what they want, right? If they don't know what they want, what do you personalize against, right? It's a little bit hard. So how much of this is kind of not just incumbent on the government and the regulators, but it's more so the players in the market, whether they're the banks. And because let's be honest, the UK is well banked. You have quite a diversified set of financial services entities. The fintechs have added to it. This phenomena has existed longer than and most companies have. So where do you see you and your peers do? Are you guys doing anything differently in terms of educating people, but genuinely educating, not just sort of, as I call education washing?
Yeah, totally. I think it's both. It's push and pull, right? So it's push from the government to do the right things and set up the right mechanisms to enable people to do it. But then it's pull from education. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, no one wants to be educated. No one wants to be educated at all. People the word education is arguably patronizing and takes people back to their school days, which no one really wants to think about. People want to absorb amazing content. And that's the challenge. And that's the challenge that kind of all fintech marketers have, right? Is that no one wants to be told this is what stocks and shares ISA is and this is why it's great. People do want to watch a fascinating video that's really engaging, really amazing, that's on YouTube about some story about stocks and shares ISA. But the fundamentals is, it's really, really boring. But how do you create amazing content? And I think bringing it back to Martin Lewis, money saving expert, him and his team have cracked that, right? People absolutely love the way he speaks about money because it's confident, it's clear. He's very direct with people about what they need to do and what actions they need to take. If I have one major criticism of the British financial system, it is that, and this is where I've got to be a bit careful about talking about the regulator, but journalists like Martin Lewis have the luxury of being able to say, frankly, whatever they want with journalistic exemption in place, right? They can say, you should do this, you should do that. This is great. This is not so great. I think this one's good. I think this one's bad. Unregulated, and it's an exemption in the regulatory system in the UK that journalists can do that. Fintechs and finance companies, obviously very heavily regulated, have to be really, really careful what they say. Right? You do not have the same liberties to say what journalists say. So you cannot say this product's good for you, this product's bad for you, in the same way that Martin Lewis does, because obviously that would be financial advice. So that would fall under different types of regulations. So we're in this really complex world, which I think the FCA are addressing, and we're certainly engaging in that dialogue with them, whereby what the British people crave is not being educated to. What they crave is clarity about what they should do as a human being. Right, in a really engaging, clear, clarified, sensible way, and that's what Martin Lewis has nailed. Right, he has a talk show, a TV show where someone stands in front of him, and they run through, and he stands in front of them and he talks about their financial circumstances. This is what you need to do. Boom, 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 boom. It's great, unregulated. He can say what he wants. Right, usually it's bang on. Right, but it's unregulated. The challenge now is how can finance companies tap into that confidence, because that is how you get people investing at scale. Get them investing at scale by creating content that feels relevant to them. It feels like, frankly, they are having a conversation with a financial advisor who understands them in a really charismatic, amazing way. And then you create content off the back of that. That's the kind of engagement that we need in British finance. And I think it's coming.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think you give me a great segue into sort of the marketing conversation I really wanted to have with you was to say, right, as the chief marketing officer of a business, there are a couple of things, right? So one is informing, educating, whatever the right word is. You got that one challenge, and I think marketing has to play a role in it. That's my assumption. The other thing is you mentioned the word community, right? You're trying to build this community of investors and so on and so forth. So can we unpack that a little bit in terms of, what's the role of marketing in helping build that community, right? And in extension, if you were to look at old world financial services, which still exists, so traditional financial services and fintech, right? Or let's call it new world financial services, how's the role of marketing evolved, right?
Really good question. I always say that I'm a bit of a reluctant marketer, right? Because I think if a product is truly extraordinary, you don't really need marketing people selling it. I think there are plenty of examples of unbelievably incredible products, ChatGPT, that have no marketing at all, and suddenly they just absolutely fly off the shelf and hundreds of millions of people use it because the product is unbelievable. I think the role of the marketer is really to keep bringing back, the role of the marketer in finance, in my mind, is to be the champion for what the brand stands for and trying to engage with that conversation with your customers at scale, right? And that sounds very wishy-washy and a bit fluffy. But basically what I mean by that is for Chip, as I've mentioned, we've really tried to lean into that authenticity. We've really tried to lean into, we are here for your long term. Now, the job of the fintech marketer is really to have that conversation with the customer and keep that conversation alive and keep it drilling. The product will do the selling, right? The product is good enough. The product has amazing pricing. It will do the selling. But for us, my job is really just to get the customers to trust us more, which is a horrible thing to say, but it is true. I need to get the customers to trust us more. I do that by consistent human content that feels very Chip and it feels very relevant to them. I think then it's about really how do we have those conversations at scale? So how do we build the mechanisms inside the business to really have personalized conversations at scale, which is really hard. That's my focus at the moment, right? Is how do we use AI? How do we use our CRM automations to have personalized conversations with 400,000 people that feel like a one-on-one conversation? And that's really hard. So I think I'm going round and round, but to answer your question very succinctly, I think the job of the fintech marketer is to truly understand the mission behind the business, and then your job is to have that conversation with customers as frequently as you possibly can, because that ultimately is what builds a long-term trust. Is a customer knowing they're not just signing up for a great rate or whatever, they're signing up because they believe where this business is going and what their money is going to be doing and where their money is going to be going and how those two things combine, right? We're having conversations with our customers today about the features we're launching next year and how that is going to help them. And that's my job. Yeah.
So, Alex, how's that different from a traditional financial services, if I may say? Because, I could argue the case that how's that any different for Barclays, right? They have a mission.
Do they
have an army.
Yeah, I don't know if they do. I think the thing is, and I think it makes my job easier actually, is that I don't think people do think that Barclays, NatWest, HSBC really stand for anything. I think people view those big incumbents and Hargreaves Lansdown, Vanguard, all these huge businesses, and they just see the same business with a slightly different logo, and they might see a quirky advertising campaign that resonates strongly with them, but I don't think they see anything that feels authentic, for sure. And I think it makes my job a lot easier, to be perfectly honest, because I can have a much more authentic conversation with my customers, and they actually believe it. They actually want to understand where this business is going, where we are going as a company, and where their money is going with us. And that makes my life a lot easier. So, yeah, I would challenge that. I don't think people think that HSBC has a mission or a vision, but they know we do.
So they definitely have a harder job than you do.
Exactly,
then.
I think so.
And yeah, right. So in the same way of thinking, we talked about community, right? I hear the word community more than I used to about 2 to 3 years ago, right? And community means different things to different people, but at the end of the day, it's kind of this whole tribe mentality. It's about sort of bringing people together. How do you go about building communities, right? It's easy to say it. Like anyone can kind of brandish this, I can say, I've got a podcast called Couchonomics and I've got a community which hangs off it. I have no clue if there is a community. I don't know how to build one. So what does the community mean to you? So what's the definition of community, Chip, and sort of what do you do, or how are you going about building that community, and why build a community?
I think for us, the best example is our crowd shareholders. So I think it was in 2017, we were like, right, we're going to do our first crowdfund. So I set up I think it was a Facebook group at the time. We had 20,000 users at the time. I invited them to join the Facebook group. I had a conversation with them about, this is what we're doing. We're thinking of doing a crowdfund, blah, 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 blah. And now that has built over time, right? Now we have a Facebook group, and we have a literal community forum we've built from scratch. But for us, that is absolutely unbelievably powerful. So I know right now that I could put 2 different new designs of new features in the community forum. I could say to the users of that forum, the community members, please can you vote on your favorite screen? And within an hour, I joke you not, I will have about 500 responses from people being like, oh, I like A, I don't really like B. It's hugely powerful for us, and it has been always. I think the key is that we have the same people at Chip, including myself, who are constantly communicating with people on that forum. So the people you're talking to are a known quantity, which I think is really, really valuable. We are extremely authentic and extremely vulnerable on there. I think I'm less bad at it now, but I have been very guilty of spending hours upon hours debating one feature or one pricing decision with one random user who's on our community forum who lives somewhere in Britain. And my wife would come in and it would be 11 o'clock at night. I'll still be on my computer. And she's like, what are you doing? You're talking to one random user. And I'm like, yeah, but it is the strangest, and arguably not that healthy experience. But I think for us, having that frank conversation with our audience has been so refreshing. It's stressful at times, for sure, very stressful at times.
Yeah, you're crowdsourcing intelligence, right? Which is arguably the end goal of any community, exactly. Right? So that's quite interesting.
I think what I'd say is for people looking to start community of users, I think don't just say community. Oh, we've got a community. It's absolute bollocks, and probably most people don't. Start a Facebook group, start a Slack channel, add everyone into it. Invite everyone into it and start having very frank, very vulnerable, very authentic conversations with them. Ask the founder about this is what I'm thinking. What does everyone think about this? And you will be surprised how powerful that is and how much that builds over time into people that really understand you as a business and where you're going and how loyal those people are. Because even if they seem very negative, and sometimes those forums can be quite negative, it's really helpful to have that body of people who are absolute kind of loyal bedrock to every decision you make, and it's been hugely powerful for us.
Interesting. My final question, Alex, 2 parts to it, right? One is, you mentioned you want to be the go-to platform, if I may use that word, for people building long-term wealth. So you obviously started to, and you will continue to diversify your offering both in terms of products, services, so on and so forth, right? So love to hear a little bit about that. But let me sort of ask a question which also sort of fascinates me. So it's great to see that you started your journey with, crowdsourcing your way, raising a significant amount of money. If I just go back to my notes, I think you said you raised £50 million, right? Does the model now need to change in terms of how you go and raise cash? Don't you want to raise a substantial amount, right, which allows you to accelerate that growth pattern? So, it doesn't still walk you away from where you are coming from. You can still keep building the community and still have a crowdsourcing element to it. So 2 parts to it. One is where you're heading next. And secondly, again, if you choose to respond, does the way you fund your business now need to evolve for you to kind of achieve that sort of next?
We're a profitable business now, right? We're going to end this year turning over about £30 million, and we're basically break even. And we are at the point in time where our revenues are growing to cover our cost base, which is it's a massive relief, to be perfectly honest, as a founder of a business to get to that point where you no longer need to raise money. Serious relief. But I think we have a kind of a 5-year game plan of how we want to develop the product, develop the customer base, take Chip to drastically more people. That is completely aligned with our current growth trajectory without needing to raise a penny in external funding. Now, that being said, if the right partner came along that could help us 10x our ability to do that, obviously we would be very open to those conversations. And we have had those conversations in the past, right? Where we've had term sheets in front of us from investors who are looking to join, institutions who are looking to get involved, but they haven't been right for us and they haven't been right for our crowd. And I think that's the key thing, is we would only bring on a potential partner where the terms of that deal do right by the crowd who have supported us to date. And we'll only engage with that if that investor is bought into our vision about how Chip has the absolute DNA of the business, being that crowd community of shareholders. However, as I said, if an investor is willing and would be willing to come in, then obviously we chat to them. But yeah, it's never been the right fit for us today. And
let me ask a quick question before you ask the second bit. So when you said 10x, is that 10x just and stays still within the UK, or is that 10x it and grow internationally? Or you're saying, hey, we're in a big enough market, enough customers to serve, why distract ourselves and go anywhere
Right
else?
now, the focus is the UK. However,
Fair enough.
going right back to my first question, if a partner could come along and support our go-to-market expansion, then totally, right?
All right, so that 10x involves potentially an international growth too. It's not just growing 10x within the market.
Exactly, right.
Because I assume you cannot possibly grow 10x, right?
No, exactly, yeah. We would like to try. But yeah, no, 100%. I think like, I'm obviously alluding to more strategic partners as well, right? Which is like, yeah, totally. We would like to partner and potentially raise money from maybe a big European asset manager, investment manager, because that would help expand that vision out and help that go to market. But I think for us, my view right now is that unless you can really crack your go to market abroad and have that clear strategy in mind, don't
bother. So what are the building blocks? So what is it that you're willing and sort of open to share over the next sort of 5 years? We get the AI bit. Let's park that to the side. Everybody's going to try their hands at AI. It'll work in some cases, won't work in some cases. But the technology itself is sort of maturing so quickly that one is hard to predict. But how do you guys look different in 2 to 3 years' time?
For us, it's about financial advice. I think that we will continue to roll out. We have a roadmap to roll out plenty of financial products over the next few years, right? Be it pension, JISA, LISA, all these kind of British financial products. But what we are now taking a big step forward into really disrupting is financial advice and financial planning. I'm a strong believer that is a fundamentally broken system whereby financial advice is only really applicable and the economics only stack up when you have enough assets that it is worth the advisor spending their time on you. Now, there is probably 90% of the British people who are kind of couldn't access that because they don't have enough capital. But these people still need advice, right? They still need to understand what the right action, the right decision to make is. But they might not have £500,000, they might have £50,000. We can cater for that with AI. And I think AI is going to be a really powerful way to do that. I also think that, I was talking about this the other day, but I think financial advice is, the way it is set up is, I don't think it's good. I think whereby you book an appointment with a financial advisor, you might have that meeting with your spouse, you come in, you have a 1 hour session where they ask you all about your goals and your life goals and stuff like that. And then suddenly you're pressured into that environment when you're like, oh my God, like we have to have this like counseling session for an hour to get all our life goals across. By the time you've got the tube home, you probably rethought that, actually, no, I don't want to do that, I want to do this. And I think the decisions people make in their lives are so much more fluid. It's so much more fluid, right? So why have a financial advice model that is built upon like initial fact find, and then this is your plan? It'd be so much more sensible to build a financial advice offering, which is so much more iterative, because that's how people think. That's how humans process emotions and everything. It evolves over time.
I love what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. And in my past life, I worked for the likes of AXA. I think when you mentioned Hargreaves Lansdown, I went back 10, 12 years in my career because I actually dealt with them as one of the brokers, because I used to work on the investment management, the life side of the business a long time ago. But yeah, I've always found that a bit bizarre, right? You have a spot, you got to spend an hour or two. You got to tell everybody about life goals. Half the times those life goals you don't even understand if they truly really exist, but you got to pick a box which sort of drops in. And then you kind of walk out of the room and you're like, okay, well, that's kind of what you look like. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And that means you need to allocate things like that. And you go, but I don't really agree with it. And then it doesn't matter. It's a spectrum. You can actually choose. And then the whole advice falls apart, right? Because as you become more imaginative about it. No, I get it. But how do you cope for it then? So what are you going to do?
Oh, right. Well, so... this is I totally think this is where AI can really step up and help, right? So I think for us at the moment, it looks like we've built and rolling out in a couple of months now a really powerful LLM, which we've programmed ourselves, which will have that more iterative, that more fluid conversation with the memory to understand what you're thinking. But fundamentally, it will then program a life chart, which will then program your life. So you can really see how those conversations iterate over time, what impact.
And you can iterate over time.
And I think there will always be a place where people do need a human financial advisor. And we will be able to offer that when the time is right, or if someone has a kind of wants wants a more kind of experienced conversation. But I think for now, what we're going to take to the mass market is an LLM chat that remembers you, gets to know you, understands your data from a financial perspective, but then programs the rest of your life with you, and you can have that iterative conversation. And I think that's really exciting.
No, I that's a great thing to end on, because I personally think that's pretty much where wealth should head. A lot of them are trying to use the tools towards building portfolios, serving them differently, having the chatbots and stuff. But I do think the magic will happen on the front end, exactly the way you've actually mentioned. I'm going to wish you the best of luck, both in the UK and the growth plan. I'm also going to leave you with a thought, which is, I think, I know maybe it is a part of your strategy, maybe it isn't, but I do think there is an infrastructure play for players like you, right? Where you can actually bring the infra which you have built, right, to overseas markets. Because a lot of the markets that I deal with in, not just the Middle East, but across the world, are further sort of back in the, if I may say, the maturity cycle of in terms of how wealth is treated, right? And I've always believed that, wealth in a lot of parts of the world is for the few, right? Wealth management. And that's a bit bizarre, because I personally think wealth is a continuation of savings, right? You kind of start that culture towards saying you got to, save intelligently, but then make the most out of the money that you've saved, right? And I think a lot of that's not being enabled is because the sophistication within the underlying platforms don't exist. But I'm not going to suggest you listen to me and change your strategy. I'll let you guys make the better decisions. But Alex, thanks a lot for making the time. If you're down in Dubai ever, do look me up. I'll be back in London in a few months' time. I'll definitely give you a shout. Maybe you, me, and Amir can go to our favorite pub and have a few beers. I'll have to edit that bit out. But good talking to you, and the best of luck.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Alex Latham, who is the co-founder and CMO of Chip. The word I am taking away is authenticity. I'm actually going to run a check on how many times we use the word authenticity, but I think that was the big takeaway for me, because not many fintechs talk about the human side. This was very, very interesting from that perspective. With that, I'll say goodbye, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.